tonight. It's really a big pleasure because I have the founder of customer experience together with me, Joe Pine. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Greg, I am doing just fine. I appreciate being on your CX Goalkeeper podcast and talking about my views.
Thank you very much. It's really a great pleasure. And before we start, was one of the first book that I read, and it's really something that I say it made me better in business and also in my personal life. And this is the thinking and what we are sharing in the customer experience community. And therefore, we are really thankful for the great work that you did, Joe. Thank you very much for that.
Well, that was very high praise, Greg. I appreciate that. But I got to ask, did you read it first in the original edition?
No, I have only this edition. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So if that one came out in 2020, right? The first one came out in 1999. We had an updated edition in 2011. So I'm glad that you became acquainted with it in the last few years. That's terrific.
Thank you very much. Before we deep dive speaking about the experience economy, we would like to learn more about you. And therefore, as usual, I always ask, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Joe Pine, and often the first thing you say is co-author of the Experience Economy. But what I do is I go around the world speaking, teaching, and consulting, and helping companies create greater economic value in their business.
Thank you very much. And perhaps in order to learn a bit more about you, which values drives in life?
Which what?
Values.
Well, that's a great question. So number one, right, as a Christian, it's important to have the values that God instills in us, and it's important also in business to have those same values. Shouldn't do different things differently in business than in your personal life. But I will say that our greater purpose is to glorify God. But my specific purpose in business, I often say, is to understand what's going on in the world of business, and then develop frameworks that first describe what's happening, and then prescribe what companies can do about it. And so the short version of that, sort of our three-word theme of our company's strategic horizons, is frameworks are us.
Thank you very much. And I think that's also a great framework for everybody in the customer experience community. It's your book, the Experience Economy. It's more than 20 years old. Perhaps from where came the idea of writing such a book?
Well, it actually first came from my first book, which is Mass Customization. Mass customization is about efficiently serving customers uniquely. And what I discovered is that when you mass customize, you automatically turn a good into a service. If you look at the classic economic distinctions, goods are standardized. Services are customized. They're done just for a particular person. Goods are inventoried after production, but services are delivered on demand when the customer says this is what they want. And goods are tangible and services intangible. But an integrated part of mass customization is the intangible service of helping people figure out what it is that they want, right? So then you figure that out, then you put together the product and give it just to them individually. And when I said that in one session long ago, it was late 93 or early 94, one of the guys in the back of the room raised his hand and he said, well, you already talked about service companies that mass customize. What does it turn a service into? And I shot back that mass customization automatically turns a service into an experience. And I went, whoa, that sounds good. Hold on a second, I got to write that down. And I thought about that, and I realized it was true that if you design a service that is so appropriate for this particular person, exactly the service that they need at this moment in time, that you can't help but make them go, wow, and turn it into a memorable event. That's what an experience is, a memorable event that engages each individual in an inherently personal way. And so I realized, well, then if that's true, then experiences are a distinct economic offering, as distinct from services as services are from goods. And if that were true, then there would be an economy based off of experiences, the experience economy. And so that's what led to, I shared that with a client actually that became my partner, Jim Gilmore. And we worked on that and published the original book in 1999, as you said, although we started publishing articles on it in 96 and 97. And even though, okay, so like I discovered this almost 30 years ago, it's even more applicable today, right? Everything we wrote about is applicable today.
Exactly. I think you discovered something 30 years ago, but nowadays it's extremely relevant. And you mentioned two topics that I think it's important to deep dive. The first one is the progression of the economic value. Could you please elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, so that progression of how economies evolve over time, how the primary economic offering shifts over time begins actually before goods, and that's with commodities. Commodities that for millennia, we have extracted them out of the ground and sell them on the open marketplace. Commodities are the basis of the agrarian economy. Then with the Industrial Revolution of the 18th century, and in particular, the rise of the system of mass production in the early 20th century, is when goods became the predominant economic offering, and we shifted into an industrial economy over 200 years ago. Now services have, like goods and commodities, have always been around, but they became the predominant economic offering in the latter half of the 20th century. Even manufacturers increasingly got more and more into services, made more money on their services rather than the goods. I worked for IBM, and that was the case. We started valuing the services more highly, making more money off of the services. And so what happens then in the service economy is that goods become commoditized, that they're treated like commodities, that people don't care about the brand or the features, all pretty much the same anyway. They come to care about three things and three things only, and that's price, price, and price. And that's when goods have been commoditized. Now, increasingly, services are being commoditized as well. And that means that companies need to find a new source of differentiation, right? I mean, you could live with being a commodity. There's one or two companies in every industry that can be successful, the ones that lower their costs, that automate as much as possible to get rid of as many people as possible. Not very fun, but it can be very successful. But otherwise, you search for differentiation, and that leads to the next level of experiences. And again, experiences have always been around. They're not a new economic offering, just newly identified, where you think of it as use goods as props and services as a stage to, again, engage, right? That's the key word, engage each person in that inherently personal way, and then create that memory, which is the hallmark of the experience. So now we've shifted into an experience economy. Now, I should mention, too, that there's one more level in the progression of economic value, right? Where because experiences can be commoditized, been there, done that. That's the hallmark of a commoditized experience. But when you customize an experience, when you design an experience now that's so appropriate for a particular person, you can't help but turn into what we often call a life-transforming experience, an experience that changes us in some way. And so that's a transformation. A transformation is the fifth and final economic offering in this progression of economic value, where you use experiences as the raw material to guide people to change. Things like fitness centers and healthcare and higher education, management consultants and B2B are all about transformation. And it's always been a part of the progression of economic value. It's there from the very beginning, because I always ask, well, what's next? What's next? What's next? But we did, my partner, Jim Gilmore, and several other colleagues, we came out with an article in the Harvard Business Review in January, February of this year, 2020, called The New You Business on Transformations, and provide a lot more detail on it. And that's what it is. You're using experiences to help people create a new you. And that's the highest economic value you can provide.
I read this article, and not only the content was great, but also the picture that you used with all these flowers. They were outstanding.
I wish I could take credit for it, but no, that's all the Harvard Business Review editors.
No, sure, but at the end, the content is the important part, and it was really, really interesting. I think you mentioned another topic that is relevant and we should understand is mass customization. Could you please elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, so mass customization is when was recognizing, first of all, that customers are unique, right? That every individual person, every business, whoever you sell to, they're unique to every other thing. We often combine them into mass markets and segments and niches. We think the generations are all alike, or if they have the same demographic, they're all alike, and that's just complete hogwash. Every customer is unique. So we need to give them exactly what they want, but we need to do it at a price they're willing to pay. We can't just increase our costs tremendously in order to customize. So that's the mass part of customization. And the secret to doing that, or the number one principle to doing that, is modularity. Right? When you think of modularity, think of Lego building bricks. Right? Greg, what can you build with Legos?
Everything.
All right, everything. Why? Because you have a large number of modules, different sizes, different shapes, different colors, and a simple and elegant linkage system for snapping them together. That's all modularity is, modules plus linkage system. So if you can modularize your offerings or your processes by which you make those offerings, then you can truly mass customize, and often you can lower costs by modularization over producing the same thing over and over again, while at the same time you're eliminating the sacrifice that people undergo when they have to buy something standard. So today you can get virtually, there's almost not a product out there or a service, or not yet experiences, but some, where you can't efficiently customize for individual people or businesses.
Thank you very much. I think you are always using one great example. This is the coffee example. Perhaps also for the people that are not really in the CX community that can understand a bit more about that. Could you please share that?
Yeah, it's an example that works around the world, right? Because like almost everywhere around the world, you drink coffee. And if you recognize, well, what is coffee at its core? It's beans, right? Coffee beans you grow out of the ground, right? Those are a true commodity. But then you extract them out of the ground, and then manufacturers take those beans and they grind them, they roast them, they package them, they put them on a grocery store shelf. Now, if you look at what farmers get for at the commodity level, right? You convert it from a per pound to a per cup basis. Basically, the farmers get 2 or 3 cents per cup. That's what coffee is worth per cup at the commodity level. But manufacturers, right, because of the increased convenience, because of the packaging, because they're bringing it to market and so forth, they get 5, 10, 15 cents per cup. But you take those beans and now you actually brew them for a customer in a vending machine, a corner diner, a kiosk, a bodega, or a Dunkin' Donuts, 7-Eleven around the world, right? Then you get 50 cents, $1.50 per cup of coffee. But surround the brewing of the coffee with the ambiance and theater of an experiential coffee shop like Starbucks, of course, which brought it to the world. Now how much you paid, right? Often $3, $4, $5 for a cup of coffee that only has 2 or 3 cents worth of beans in it, right? That's the progression of economic value. That's how you create more value. Notice that there's 2 orders of magnitude in value created. You go from 2 or 3 cents to $3 to $5. And that's in recognition of the value that people get out of that at each level.
I think what you're saying is it's extremely interesting, and I had the opportunity to participate to several conferences where we were speaking, or I was watching you. And one time I had the opportunity to ask you also a question. It was the Amazon question, because every, let's say, customer experience expert is saying what Amazon is offering, it's a great experience. And you really explained in a very nice way that it's not an experience.
Correct.
It's a great story, but could you please share that?
Sure. It's so there's a sense in which it's an experience, because the word experience is an incredibly expansive word. And so one can say truthfully that as long as we're conscious, we're experiencing. And somebody else could say, well, if you're dreaming, your brain is experiencing something as well, right? So yes, there is that sense of it, but it's not an experience as a true distinctive economic offering in this progression of economic value that I'm talking about, right? So why? Well, because one of the core distinctions between services and experiences is time well saved as a service, time well spent as an experience, that people value the time that they're spending. That's what they're buying from you. And what Amazon does is it is the best time well saved company in the world, right? Where you can quickly find exactly what you want. You can one click and order it, and boom, it's on your way to your house, and you spent 10 seconds. I mean, literally from thinking of something you want to buy to order, you spend 10 seconds. I remember being at a conference once, and this was many years, it's 2011, I think. It's when my book Infinite Possibility came out, which is about using digital technology to fuse the real and the virtual. And I was at a conference and I was talking on that, and I had a copy with me. And a guy said, "Oh, let me see that. Oh, wow, that's fantastic." He goes, click, click, Amazon app, opens up, look, camera view, sees the book, clicks it, recognizes it, boom, done, on his way to his house. I mean, literally 10 seconds, right? So that is incredibly time well saved versus saying, "Oh, I think I want that book. I'm going to go find a Barnes & Noble or other bookstore somewhere. And then I'm going to go seek it out. And I'm going to go, hopefully they have it on the shelf. If not, I got to order it, and then it'll take weeks, so forth." So it's absolutely wonderful service. And what it does is it gets into what I think is the core distinction between what most people call customer experience and what we mean by true distinctive experiences. That what most people call customer experience is just making our interactions with customers nice and easy and convenient, or frictionless is sort of the byword now, right? Amazon is frictionless. It's beautiful. But all those characteristics, nice, easy, convenient, frictionless, are all service characteristics. They're not experience characteristics, right? Nice is nice, but rarely does it rise to the level of memorability. And to create a true distinctive experience, you have to create that memory. That's the hallmark of the experience, the residue of the experience. When we make things easy, often we routinize things for our own employees to make it easy to deliver a service to their customers. But that gets in the way of being personal, right? That's doing the same thing for everybody again, because we want to make it easy. But experiences are inherently personal. Experiences actually happen inside of us. All right, it's our reaction to the events that are staged in front of us. And finally, again, convenience is the antithesis of what I'm talking about, because then convenience is spending less time with customers, spending as little time as possible. And that's what most customers want today from goods and services, is they want to spend as little time with the company. Why? So they can, and they want it to be commoditized, so they can buy it at the lowest possible price and the greatest possible convenience. Spend as little time money. Why? So they can spend their hard-earned money and their hard-earned time on the experiences that people value. So experiences, again, are about time. That's the key. Their experiences are about the time that customers spend with you, and that it's time well spent.
I think that's extremely important, what you are saying, and it's also part of the title of the book. It's competing for customer time, attention, and money. One remark on what you said, and then we can speak about getting the customer attention. That's what we discussed also then via email while I was inviting you to this podcast. It was perhaps with Amazon I can compare and use another shop to buy something. It's extremely, if it's this seamless as Amazon, but an experience like my preferred soccer team, I would never change that. Even if they would lose all the games in the championship, I would stay committed to them.
Exactly. I'm going through that right now with baseball. I'm a diehard New York Yankees fan, and they've had the best record in baseball. It's been a wonderful season, just enjoy it. And all of a sudden, they're like losing 3 out of 4 games. And it's like terrible, but am I going to switch and watch somebody else? Well, of course not. This is my team, right? And they provide, and they're obviously they're in the experience business, is what all sports are. And you create that relationship with them, you're going to keep it for life.
Exactly. Thank you very much. We spoke a bit about attention, and I think that's the big issue that a lot of businesses have, because the attention of people is decreasing and decreasing. If I read that the last thing that I read about TikTok, people are watching 2.7 seconds a video and then they decide to switch to the next one. How can I create such an experience in so short time frame?
Right. Well, in fact, and if you think about the smartphone, for every business is the #1 competitor for attention. And so any experience that you're in, you can immediately drop out of that experience by picking up your smartphone and go someplace else virtually. And that's true for smartphone experiences. Like you say, I'm in a TikTok video, it's like, boom, done. Nope, that's not engaging me. I will go someplace else. So getting people's attention is increasingly important through engagement, again, by creating experiences that they truly value. Today, a lot of companies try and get attention via advertising, but advertising just doesn't work in today's world like it used to. I mean, great ones are great and they'll always be beneficial, but for the most part, most companies should stop advertising and put their marketing money into experiences so they engage people. It's why you see the rise of places like the Guinness Storehouse in Dublin, the Heineken experience in Amsterdam, the World of Coca-Cola in Atlanta, and so on and so forth, is that major brands recognize that they want to reach people and engage them with their brand, right? And capture their time as well as their attention. And if you capture people's time and attention, well, the chances they're going to spend money on you is so much higher, right? That's why we say that in today's experience economy, as the subtitle of the book has it, is that you're competing for customer time, attention, and money. These are the three key things, the currencies of the experience economy.
Thank you very much. I think what you are often explaining to us and repeating is that we need to make this experience memorable, that people need to remember that. Is there a way to measure that memorability?
Yes, it's still more of an art versus a science in terms of memorability. You can survey people. You can think of them. You can watch their social media posts, right? And how often they mention something. You can do sentiment analysis when they talk about you and so forth. One company I know, Immersion Neuro, from famous neuroscientist Paul Zak, has created the ability to measure how engaged or immersed somebody is in an experience through Fitbit devices and other such devices, right? So they actually can measure the blood flow of your body. They do fMRIs to correlate that to what's going on in your brain, and they can actually draw you the dramatic structure of an experience and show when you're engaged and when you're not through any sort of experience. So the science is starting to catch up with the art and be able to measure that level of attention and engagement. And often, and you can use a proxy for time, right? So how much time are people spending in your experience, right? That's a great proxy for the attention as well, and as well as how much money they're spending. And I know you like this part, but one of the things we added in the new edition of the book is the concept of the money value of time. Right? The money value of time it allows you to compare cross industries and other companies by simply saying how much expenditures per minute are customers providing you, right? So like if you go to a Starbucks, for example, and you spend $5 on a cup of coffee and you spend a half hour or an hour in the place enjoying the experience, the aesthetic experience they provide, well, you're actually spending 5 to 10 cents per minute, right? That's what it works out to. If you go to a movie and spend like $12 US for a 2-hour experience, you're spending 10 cents per minute for that movie. You go to Walt Disney World, right, and you spend over $100 for an 8 or 9, 10-hour day. Guess what? You're spending over 20 cents per minute, right? Every minute in there, you just take a couple of dimes or a quarter out of your pocket and throw it away. That's what you're spending. So you can use that to compare across industries. And the higher the money value of time, or MVT, then the greater level of engagement and attention that you're doing, the greater value of the time that they have for their money. And many places now, like escape rooms, as well as immersive art exhibits like Meow Wolf and the Van Gogh experience and others, they're getting 30, 40, 50 cents per minute. They're getting a higher MVT than even Disney has on its theme parks.
And perhaps let's add me one example, because in Europe, if you want to watch a soccer match, Champions League, then you pay 90 euros for 90 minutes. And then we're speaking for €1 for each minute.
Exactly. It's a great example because it works out so well, right? You're paying €1 a minute for a soccer match. That's a very high MVT.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I think the last 2 questions on the book. Did you really expect it to get such a success out of this book?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. We thought it was like the greatest concept in the world. In fact, I'll tell you a little story before that, is that I told you how I discovered it out of mass customization. And I was working with now my partner, Jim Gilmore, but then he was my biggest client. He was a consultant with CSC. And I was scheduled to meet with him, fly to Cleveland. And so, and like the day or two before, I had really started thinking about this even more. And I got down, I got out one night, I couldn't go to sleep. So I got out this giant sheet of paper, and I started writing all of the economic distinctions between all of the 5 economic offerings. right? Everything I could think of. And that really allowed you to say, right, these really are distinct. This is different. And so I just thought, wow, this is so good, right? This has got to be released in the world. So the next morning, I took that piece of paper, I typed it up, and then I called Jim's secretary. And I told her, I says, I'm going to fax you a one-page sheet of paper. I want you to go over the fax machine, please, because I don't want anybody else to see it, right, when it's coming through. And then I want to take that sheet of paper, put it in a manila envelope, seal it up, and give it to Jim, but write on it, do not open until you see Joe, right? And I did that for two reasons. One is I knew it would bug him all day long to have this sheet that he can't open up. And two, if my plane went down on the way to Cleveland, I wanted somebody to have this so that it would get out into the world, right? So now I can't say that all the huge success of experience companies in the last 25 years are because of me, right? That's not the case at all. Disney started doing its thing in 1955 when they came out with Disneyland, but it's that. So the experience economy would have come about even if I'd never come along to name it. Eventually, somebody else would have named it, but it did help many companies recognize much earlier than they would have that, yeah, this is something different, this is something distinct, this is something that we need to do.
Thank you very much. We are running out of time and the game is coming to an end, but I would like to ask you 3 questions. There are short questions. The first one is there another book that you can mention that helped you during your life or during your career?
In terms of what the book that changed my life is Stan Davis's book, Future Perfect. It's from 1987. But it's as applicable today as it was when he wrote it. I was a strategic planner for IBM when I read it. And when I read it, it was like the heavens opened up and the angels sang, because he coined the term mass customization. He had a chapter in there on mass customizing. I said, yes, this is exactly what we need to do at IBM. And I worked to get it into our plans and strategies in our division at IBM. And then IBM sent me to MIT for a year to get my master's degree. And I said, well, I'm going to write a thesis on mass customization and I'm going to turn it into a book. I mean, immediately. That's what I said. That's what I did. That, of course, led to the experience economy. He has another chapter in there called No Matter. And the idea being is that the amount of materiality that corporations need to use to create economic value is decreasing, almost exponentially. And the singularity folks would tell you it is exponentially. And so there's much greater value to be had in digital technology and how you reduce that materiality. And that inspired the book I mentioned earlier, Infinite Possibility, where I recognize, well, if there's matter and no matter, there must be space and no space, right? Real places, virtual places. There must be time and no time, right? Time, space, and matter are the trinity of variables that make up the universe and all of our experience. But digital technology enables, again, no time, no space, and no matter. And that framework is the core of Infinite Possibility that looks at all the different ways that you can fuse the real and the virtual. So that's the book. So I wouldn't be here today talking with you, Greg, if it weren't for that book.
Thank you very much. And perhaps you spoke about this book. It was written quite a lot of time ago. What do you foresee in customer experience, for example, in 10 years from now?
Well, hopefully in 10 years from now, everybody in customer experience will recognize the difference between great service and great experiences, the distinctions between those, and work as much effectively on experiences as on services, because experiences are built on top of service. Part of the progression of economic value is that all of these offerings are built upon the ones below. You can't have a transformation without experiences that change it. You can't have experiences without the service activities that make that happen. You can't have services activities without the objects that use to do those services, and you can't have those objects unless you have the raw materials of commodities. So like you go to a Disney World theme park again, since we mentioned them, you want the service aspects to be nice and easy and convenient. You don't want to spend 20 minutes at admission getting into the park. You want that boom done. So let's get a magic band. Let's go boom done to beep, you're on, right? It takes a fraction of a second practically. That's what you want. So it's great. All of the things that are doing to make these services frictionless are great, because again, they free up people's time, right? And their money, but people's time, the most precious resource on the planet is the time of individual human beings. And great CX frees up that time. Again, so they can spend on experiences, but in the CX profession, we need to then spend the time on making sure those experiences are done well, that those experiences are engaging, compelling, and especially memorable.
Thank you very much. The last question before we close with the Golden Nugget, if somebody would like to contact you to ask you questions.
If you want to contact me, you can connect on me with LinkedIn as you did, Greg. And I'm also on Twitter at Joe Pine. And then we have a website, strategichorizons.com, strategichorizons with an S.com, where you can learn all about me, my partner, our ideas. I've got thought posts out there where I extend the ideas from the book that you can look up. We have and on there, you also find out about our Experience Economy Expert Certification course, a 4.5-day immersion in the experience economy where you truly become an expert in all the ideas, principles, and frameworks we have, as well as that we have an on-stage offering that's a frontline video training. So if you're frontline, you have frontline people, you're interacting directly with customers, you need to understand that work is theater, and you need to direct your workers to act, and on stage is a great way to be able to do that.
Thank you very much. You also have an outstanding newsletter that I will add into the show notes that people can join and subscribe it. Please,
thank you. Yeah, quarterly newsletter, and it's on our contact page.
Thank you very much. And now we're really coming to an end. The last question is, Joe Pine, Golden Nugget, it's something that we discussed or something new that you would like to leave to the audience?
The Golden Nugget I'd leave is I would suggest every person in the audience ask themselves, what business are we really in? What business are we really in? Are we in the business of extracting commodities, making goods, delivering services, staging experiences, and even guiding transformations, right? And so, for example, for you, Greg, and others who are really helping companies embrace these concepts, well, you're really in the transformation business, right? You need to help companies you need to guide them into achieving their aspirations of becoming great experience companies. And so it's always important to ask what business you're in and recognize the opportunities of being in the higher level businesses in the progression of economic value.
I conclude saying thank you very much, Joe. For me, it was a great experience. I will remember for a long time this discussion. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
Joe, please stay with me. And to the audience, thank you very much. It was a great pleasure. Please watch the webpage of Joe. Look on that. Look at his videos, because I think you can really learn something, and we can drive the customer experience and the business for everybody forward. Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure. If you enjoyed this episode, please share the word of mouth. Subscribe it, share it. Until the next episode, please don't forget, we are not in a B2B or B2C business, we are in a human-to-human environment. Thank you!